All right, and welcome back for finishing up our next unit. And so we're going to finish up with two chapters here talking about schools and how they help in developmental contexts as well as media. And this is my second time filming this. The first time it crashed, so I will try and be even more enthusiastic. But I'm excited to jump into this chapter. You have your first exam due by the end of the week. It's been open since last week, so please make sure you get that done. It is due, like everything else, Thursday before 5. So with that said, let's jump into schools in developmental context. So schools are so important for social development. In fact, children spend a ton of time in them. The average US child spends about 5 hours a day, 180 days a year, starting at about age 3 or 4 until they're about 18. So that's quite a bit of time. Probably more time than they spend with their families when they're awake during the year. So there's a lot that goes into the development of children while they're in the school building. Schools teach us rules and norms and values and really how to interact with our peers. Schools have this big sense of community. So teachers, children, school, and staff, they're always supporting each other and having these similar values. If you've been in a building, they might have this acronym. The building I'm at, they say SOAR, safety, ownership, attitude, responsibility. 4 things that everybody, regardless of age, is working on when they're inside the building. Schools also have a strong sense of social community, so children who attend school normally have a more positive attitude, and then they exhibit more pro-social behaviors and fewer maladaptive ones. The size of the school can be important. We see that school size about under 600. Kids are feeling more attached, more likely to participate in extracurricular activities, and that leads to higher attendance, self-esteem, achievement, and less risk-taking behaviors. So I've worked in a number of different schools. The current school I'm in has under 300 students. And I've worked in high schools with 28 to 4,000 students. And I noticed the same things. When you're in this giant school, it's a lot easier to get lost. In a small school, every teacher knows you, they know your family. In these bigger schools, you might never meet some of these teachers in your whole tenure. We do see that dropout rates are higher in larger schools as well. All right, let's talk about a difficult age, this transition age, 6th, 7th, 8th, middle schoolish. Normally, we're seeing kids have lower self-esteem, less involvement in school activities, and a lower sense of belongingness. Okay? A ton of changes are going on in middle school. You go from having teachers are different, work is harder, and on top of that, we have puberty co-occurring. So we're seeing a ton of physical and cognitive and social changes, and then we just kind of throw it all together into a middle school. So really hard time for students. I have a slide in here around gender composition, and there's a bullet point here around students in a same-sex classroom. I actually worked in a building, and we did an all-boys 2nd grade, but at the same time we also did only technology. So had this room of 2nd graders working with their own personal iPads, creating these amazing PowerPoint presentations and becoming so technologically advanced. But there were so many confounding variables, weren't really able to tease out what happens when it's just a classroom of boys or when it's just a classroom of girls. We do see that gender differences become more salient, and so we're more likely to develop gender stereotypical views because we're only with our same gendered peers. With classroom sizes, just like with school size, smaller classes promote supportive and caring environments. There's a lot more teacher-child interaction. It's more frequent, it's more personalized. And we normally see better behavior, kids interacting better with their peers, and really just being a positive experience. We've got a 5th grade classroom at my building right now, and it's pretty big. It's bigger than we've ever had a classroom, and the behaviors are pretty severe. It's really hard to stay on top of your class and do classroom management when you're just trying to manage space. Next big slide in here is teacher-student relationship. So we've got teacher-student conflict, and this will come up. We've got people who dislike school, they're less helpful, less cooperative. We also have students who have a dependency on their teacher. They have low school engagement. And I see this happen with students who have a learned helplessness. And so they'll say, I'm so bad at math, I can't even do it. And their teacher might bail them out. And they just learn to become way too dependent on their teacher and not push themselves. It's important to have close and warm relationships. When we do that, our students have higher school adjustment, higher self-esteem, more peer acceptance. And the ways that you do that, you just have to show up and be your genuine self. Often I've seen teachers who talk like this in front of their class, and that's not really who they are. And kids are very perceptive. They'll pick up on you not being genuine. And so just being your genuine self. Obviously, if you are very unhappy and you hate your job, and you show up and you say, I hate my job, I hate all of you, you're not going to connect with your students. But most people in this teaching field, as I'm reading from all of your blogs, generally enjoy what they do. All right, next part of this I want to talk about is teacher response. So discipline techniques, huge subject. I see some of you write about it. I know some of you ask about it. Reinforcement principles do successfully manage student behavior, but rewards tend to decrease intrinsic motivation. And so what I mean by that is if your class is only working for prizes, eventually they're only going to do it for the prizes, not because, wow, when I work hard, I get smarter and I enjoy how I feel, but when I work hard, we get candy and I only like candy. And over time, we actually see that giving prizes like that, as soon as you stop giving the prize, the behavior reverts back to even worse than it was before. So as we look at discipline techniques, yes, it's important to have your class buy in and be excited about rewards, but also we want to push our students to be intrinsically motivated. I come to class, I behave because it feels good. Ways to do that, rather than calling out, Jared, stop shouting out, and Tina, stop yelling. We're saying, wow, Sally, I love how you are raising your hand and being patient. Or Sam, great job sitting still. I can tell you're ready to learn. We want to do that rather than just constantly giving some kind of tangible reward. Another piece of this chapter is school and family links. So parental involvement in school normally predicts higher academic achievement and better peer relations for students. And so I've worked in different schools. I've worked in high SES schools and low SES schools. And in some of the schools I've been in, parental involvement is tough. Parents are working night shifts and sleeping throughout the day, or they're working their third and fourth jobs throughout the day and just working so many hours. And so at one school I was at, we had low parental involvement, and we were creative with when we offered ways for parents to connect. Yes, maybe they can't come in at noon to come cut out copies, but we would do donuts with dads or muffins with moms first thing in the morning so we could catch parents before they got to work. Or we had movie nights in the evenings or carnivals on the weekends. Just really trying to get your parents connected. You'll see more buy-in from your students as well. The final piece of this school link is just thinking about after school programs or mentors. And there's aftercare and before care, and a great way just to have kids continue to work on their self-care, their self-regulation, doing homework independently. I've worked in another school where we partnered with Boys and Girls Club, and a bunch of our students would go over there after school. Maybe parents were busy, maybe they weren't able to get the academic support they needed at home, and just having these mentorship programs in place is super helpful. All right, we're going to go on to the next topic. So this topic is all about media and how it changes us. So this is a really big topic, especially now we have everyone is on their phone or their tablet or their social media. And so how does that affect a child? So television viewing, previously the Academy of Pediatrics really said kids shouldn't be watching before the age of 2.5 and less than 2 hours a day before the age of 3. It's recently been revised and only really video chatting until 1.5 years. High quality educational programming after 1.5 years. So the rules have become a little more lax, and honestly the programming has become better that's available to our children. Actual viewing statistics, infants are averaging about 30 plus minutes per day, and 3 to 11 are on their screens for about 3 hours a day. So that is gradually increased. We do see boys watching more than girls, and just a higher rate of TV exposure in early childhood than we're seeing in the past. So why do we use TV? You've probably seen this when you're out. Maybe you've done this. Maybe you were a part of this. But normally, parents are putting their kids on a device when they're wanting to do something else and need to keep their child occupied. So this is, they're out to dinner. It's their first date night in a month. And they're going to give their child the tablet so that they don't bother them during dinner or they don't get upset. Other reasons we're seeing it, helping children fall asleep, as well as a reward for good behavior. Probably 90% of the students I work with, their parents have them working for tablet or screen time throughout the week for completing chores and their homework. 20% of infants actually have a TV in their room. And the major reason for that is so parents don't have to give up their screen time, and so their child can watch something in their room while they're watching their program in the living room. So a big hot topic with TV and media and our mood is, how does media violence and aggression affect us? So there's been a ton of studies, and what we really see is that seeing violence on TV just desensitizes us to it. It doesn't make us go out and be aggressive, but it does make us more okay with it. We see it over and over again. It's not as outlandish to us. There's more realistic portrayals, and that can often have a bigger impact. But for the most part, it's not going to go out and make us aggressive. There was a study that was done in social psychology, you might remember, and it was the Bobo Doll experiment. And so parents went in and their kids were watching, and they're like punching this clown and tackling it and hitting it. And then they bring the kids in. They're like, here's all this stuff to play with. What do you want to play with? And they had no previous aggressive history. And they go in and they start punching this clown in the face and hitting it with stuff. And really what we see, that study showed us, we do want to try and mimic. And so that's the idea behind media violence, and all of the aggression and sadness we see on TV could really become a part of us. Thinking about other undesirable effects of TV, we have this decreased interaction with the world around us when we're on our media. So I know as a kid, I would be in the shopping cart and I'd be reading all the box titles and saying hi to everyone and really interacting and working on eye contact and conversations. But if you're sitting in the shopping cart and you're just watching your cartoon, you're not interacting with the world around you. You're not understanding what's going on. You're not learning social norms of how to interact. And so that's another big deficit of putting our kids on so much media. Final thing I want to talk about with an undesirable effect is really body issues. So as we're watching TV, we're seeing unrealistic ideas about what an ideal body looks like. Maybe watching a ton of plastic surgery happen, people that spend 25 hours a day in the gym, and we see that and we go, wow, I don't look like that. How come I don't look like that? I don't like how my body looks. So really thinking about the undesirable stereotypes as well as the unrealistic ideas that we see on TV and how those are reinforced by constantly watching them. One last thing with that, watching TV can contribute to obesity. We're not getting out of the house. It's really easy to eat while we're watching TV and you're watching Netflix, and are you still there? You've watched 54 episodes in a row. Oh, you are? Great. I'm just going to keep playing. And we don't get outside. Also, media can disrupt our sleep. So if you're looking at your phone before bed, it's exciting your brain. Your brain's like, hey, I think it's daytime. Look how bright it is. And you have a harder time getting to sleep. There is some educational value in TV, promoting cognition skills, pro-social behavior. I have a picture of Sesame Street on here. There are some programs that are great for kids, but we just want to make sure we reduce the amount of viewing. We regulate what our kids are watching. If you can, you co-view with your child. And really just encouraging doing things outside of the screen world. All right, last couple things I want to talk about with this chapter. Video game usage, same ideas along with TV usage. There was a big debate a while ago when Grand Theft Auto came out. Oh my gosh, kids are playing this. Now they're going to want to steal cars and kill people. Really, the research came back and just says it desensitizes us to violence, doesn't make us more violent, but yeah, it makes us more okay with seeing violence. Also, the internet can be a wonderful tool. So much knowledge, a way to connect with friends. And so I want to make sure that we don't just say no internet ever. A lot of students find it easier to express their true selves on the internet. You see a lot of heavy usage from people in the LGBTQ community. Just easier to say this is who I am through that screen. I've worked with a couple students, whether it's because of social anxiety or because of autism, that really just have a hard time connecting. And they use video games and the internet to connect with a big group of peers. I have a student who had never had a play date in person, but every day at 6 p.m., him and 6 friends would get on, and they'd be playing Roblox or whatever game, have their headset in, they're talking about their day, they're talking about the game. Really ease the anxiety of being face-to-face, having to make eye contact, having to feel uncomfortable with, oh, we're all just playing this game. Oh, yeah, I did that homework too. What'd you think? Super cool to see. So there are some definite good benefits to video games and social media and things like that. So in conclusion, it's so important as a parent to really monitor frequency and content of all type of media. And that way we're really going to minimize undesirable effects and maximize all of those desirable effects. So you do have an exam. I'm going to do a little exam review right now, but please do make sure you're getting that in. Love reading all of your books. All right, so for exam review, this is a multiple choice exam. You know, as I look through this exam, I think it's probably important to know different things throughout these lessons. So knowing what a family systems approach is would be important to know. Knowing what changes occur across childhood and adolescence that really foster the development of autonomy. Know what happens for low SES and high SES parents and how that affects not only the way that they raise their children, but how they do their parenting. I would understand what the emotional security theory is. At different stages of development, what things are met. So by 18 months, what happens? Are kids able to interact with one another? Are they able to behave completely independently? Do they ignore one another? Thinking about things like that. I would know how neglect affects children and how different attachments affect children. I would know things about what perceived popularity does for students, as well as what kind of friendships are focused on during different ages, so during middle childhood. Coming from today's lesson, I think about what is the recommended number of TV viewing hours for a kid under the age of 2. Think about why it's important to reduce television use and how we do that. So I think that's probably a good bit of test review. I know you'll do wonderful. Looking forward to seeing all your answers. Keep up the great work. Here is the song. Bye.